I think this is the book you all should try to see. What is this book about? I'm still going through. This is an amazing book. It talks about the certain philosophies. He is one of the founding members of Sri Govindji Gaudiya Much. You all know about the temple, right? Our Gaudi Govindji temple. He's the founding member of that. And this temple, this is one of the largest temple that is built in Houston under the guidance of Srila Narayan Goswami Maharaj. Vishnu Prabhu continues to serve here as a teacher, mentor, and he's regularly conducting class on Bhagavad Gita. And we'll talk more about some upcoming classes and various Vedic scriptures. He has a YouTube channel, The Nectar of Bhagavad Gita. If you are interested, let's talk about it after the session. And it is really, really rare to meet someone who is having such a balance between deep spiritual and the worldly success around us. With that, it is, I would request a round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So let's do a quick sound check. Is everyone able to hear me clearly? Yes. When I was in IIT, one of my professors would always say, "Can you all hear me?" We'll say yes. "Do you understand me?" Yes. "As clear as mud?" We will say yes. So I hope it's not as clear as mud, but we make it as clear as crystal water. So we'll start with a short invocation and then we will get into today's topic. Om Gyan Timiranhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Om Vishnupadaya Radhikayai Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Niti Namine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanyaya Namne Gaur Tushe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sandhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So welcome everyone for this workshop which we are calling Mind and Stress Management. As he was saying, I was fortunate enough to come to the path of spirituality at a very young age. And what triggered that was that back in those days, when, like many other youngsters who was in the 12th grade, I was preparing for the IIT entrance examinations. It was very competitive then also, probably not as competitive as today, but still competitive. Because in those days, there were only 6 IITs. And each IIT would only take about 200 to 240 students. So out of 200,000 who appeared for the exam, only about 1,500 got admission. So early in the morning, would get up at 4:35 and start studying. Nowadays, there are many coaching classes, but in those days, if you remember, or if you've heard of, there used to be Agrawal classes. That was all by correspondence. So getting up early in the morning, I would start studying really hard. And that's when these questions start popping up in my mind. What really life is all about? I'm studying so hard for what purpose? And what is the end goal of all of this? And I can just say that I was fortunate enough that instead of becoming dejected and frustrated and disappointed, I started reading some books of Swami Vivekananda, Swami Ram Tirath, and then ultimately came to Bhagavad Gita. And I can just say that starting from that time, almost 35 plus years, that this has been a great inspiration and helping through all the challenges that I have personally faced in my life. And now that I see that how people, and especially our young, are facing those challenges even at a greater proportion. So this is something inspired by my spiritual guides. I wanted to start these workshops so that people can understand that what is in our Vedic scriptures. Many times, when we think of Bhagavad Gita, or for that matter, any other religious scripture, we find it difficult to read, and we also feel at times that it does not have any practical instructions for our life. But today, hopefully, we will go through some of that, and then we can understand that how this is a text specifically for our life. And all of us, no matter what age, what community, what religion, what country do we live in, we all face these challenges. So that's why we are calling it a life transformation workshop. So what is really transformation? I think how many of you are in the IT field? Or maybe I should ask how many of you are not in the IT field? Almost everyone is in the IT field, right? So you've all heard of digital transformation. So would anyone like to define what is digital transformation? Or business transformation? You all go through that, right? Come on. I thought you were all in IT.
Change in how you operate.
Change in how you operate. Very good.
Basically, for all time from paper, you're going to the screen.
From paper, you're going, so doing the business in a different way, more efficiency, right? So what else can you say about what is transformation? Because everyone is going through these digital and business transformations today, yes? From one phase to another phase. And why do you go through a transformation? For betterment, yes? No company invests money to become less profitable, right? No one invests money to become less efficient. They want to become more efficient. They want to become more competitive. They want to become leaders in their own industry. So transformation, and you must have all heard of these things, that going from as is state, right? So whenever we go, I'm sure many of you are involved in presenting these proposals and going through these transformations, and you said, this is where I am today, or we as a company are today. So that is called the as is state. And where we want to be. So today we operate everything by paper, and we want to be where we have everything automated. Right? Or today, we are spending $50 million on our costs. We want to be where we are at $25 million. Or today, our customers, we have a lot of complaints, but we want to get to a point where we have less than 5% customers who are unsatisfied. So many different ways that we want to transform. So now change that to our life, right? The same concept is for life transformation. So I'm sure that every one of you who's here today is thinking of that I am in some state today which I'm not necessarily very happy with, right? Or I'm not very satisfied with, right? So maybe I will let me keep this as interactive as possible. So if some of you who are here, so for example, you have come today, what's your goal in going through this workshop?
Get some good things.
Get some good things, okay? Sure.
to see how you can, use these principles of Gita in daily life.
Good. So how can we use the principles of Gita in daily life? How about you?
I mean, mine's actually the same thing. I mean, how you can basically, better oneself and using these types of what you end up learning in your daily life, and how you can, learn from it and being able to manage it.
Yes. So all of you have come here for some level of transformation because something is lacking. I hope nobody has come here by mistake trying to figure out how to have a better portfolio and make more in the stock market, because that I won't be able to share with you. So this is our current as is state, where it seems that even though we have a lot, right, we all have probably much more than what our parents or grandparents had. We all have greater access to facilities, probably more than anyone else in the world. We are living in potentially the richest country in the world and supposedly the most advanced country in the world. Right? But still, as you go around, and I'll share some very interesting statistics with you, we all deal with what I would say a very confused and at times a depressed mind. I think everyone goes through these stages of confusion, anxiety, stress, depression. And that is, let's say, our as-is state. And from there, where do we want to go to? We want to get to a state where our mind is very strong. It does not get disturbed. It does not get, depressed or confused. Knows exactly what to do in every situation in life. If that can be achieved through Bhagavad Gita. How many of you have read Bhagavad Gita? Let me start with that. How many have read? Yes? So at least we have 4 or 5. So what was Arjun's state of mind when the battle was going to start? What was his state of mind?
He was very confused. He was all into these are my elders, my family, my friends, my whole thing. He was looking at them from a relationship perspective, not from their actions. So what we do in life mostly is that, we get lost in this, this Maya about attachment and all this stuff, and then so Krishna, number one, he tries to knock some sense into him and say that, you have the beauty and you have the thing, and you got to, you have to, what your beauty is, what your dharma is. I think it's the most beautiful book in the world.
Absolutely. So he started with a very confused state of mind. He said to Krishna, Karpanya dosh upahat svabhava prichami tvam dharma sammudha chetaha. So he's saying dharma sammudha chetaha. So dharma means my beauty. And he says, I'm completely bewildered. But what should I do? And Karpanya dosh upahat svabhava means that I am very deluded. And he was shivering. He was sweating and very nervous. So these are all the signs when you have great anxiety or stress. So he was experiencing all of that. He's standing on the battlefield where he's supposed to fight, but he wanted to run away. And his mind was going through a million thoughts and trying to justify that why he should not fight that battle. So mind had completely overwhelmed him. Then Krishna started speaking Bhagavad Gita. So his start was very confused, very depressed, very anxious. And by the time Krishna spoke the next 650 or so verses, which is a dialogue between 2 of them, towards the end, what does Arjuna say? He says, Nashta moha smritihi labdhavaha. So he says that all my bewilderment is gone now. Nashta moha. So that all this illusion that I was facing, Nashta means completely gone. And he says, Smriti Labdhava, I have regained my composure. I have regained my memory. I've regained my understanding of what should I do. So, this is exactly, so Bhagavad Gita is actually a transformation of Arjun going from a very confused state of mind to a very strong state of mind. And after that, he did not waver. He went and fought the battle. Right? For 1 second after that, he had no confusion in his mind of what he should be doing. So this is why, in fact, Bhagavad Gita is a text, as she very nicely put, the most wonderful book, because it teaches us those very practical life techniques that we can follow to go through the same transformation. Now, what does that require, right? So it does require some knowledge and it requires some practice. Right? But to achieve anything in our life, we need to understand. So hopefully today, I will share some ideas with you from Bhagavad Gita. And of course, we'll talk about some basic practice. And I would hope that you all can then follow and then see how that helps you to nourish your lives. But before we go into all of this, let's just see what all things cause stress in our life. So let's go through, different tables, and if one person, just tell me one thing or two things that cause stress in your life. Responsibility. Okay.
Desire.
Okay, let's go maybe one by one. So we'll start from here. So, anyone, if you have anything that you think causes stress? Work, okay. Anyone else? We have a youngster here. Do you feel any stress? No stress of exams, right? No exams? Or probably you don't even have exams right now. You're lucky you're not growing up in India because they have these big bags of books and exam every 3 months. So yes, from that table.
High expectations.
High expectations. Okay. Let's see. From Tapan's table. Anything that causes you stress?
Kids.
Kids. Well, that's debatable, but I know people do experience that.
Relationships.
Relationships. That's a good one, right? Relationships.
Financial security.
That's another good one. Financial security. Okay, what else? Do you have some?
Procrastination.
Procrastination.
Not doing things we are supposed to do.
Okay. Yes. Ego. Okay.
I think we all live away from our family. That causes a lot of stress in our lives.
So, lack of family or love. Let's put it lack of love, right? Of close ones. I'll say lack of real love.
Future. What will happen in future?
Future. Fear of future. Right? Especially in these days.
Also health.
Health issues.
Health, yes. Okay.
He's trying to strike a balance between work and
So work-life balance. Okay. Anyone else?
peer pressure.
Peer pressure. So I think we have a pretty good list, and I think we can probably come up with several others. So I think a lot of these, each one of us face, and I think as we go through this, we'll refer to this list and see if any one of those things that we are learning and practical things that we will talk about can help alleviate any one of these issues. Now you are not alone, right? It's not just that you all who are in this room are experiencing stress, right? And I would say you are probably the lucky ones because you are trying to find a solution. Unfortunately, there are many others who are experiencing the same, but they don't even have a solution or they're not seeking the right solution. So I just want to share, and you must have all seen these kind of statistics, that actually stress levels are increasing significantly. They're not just increasing, but increasing in very high percentages. So in 2025 alone, this year, the projection is that close to 42.5 million US adults are going to have mental health conditions. Now, mental health is a broad term, and this leads to a lot of serious challenges. See, with stress, it is something that many times people are not able to say to others. It is there in your mind, it is there troubling you internally, and just like a diabetes, it eats you from within and causes these long-term mental conditions. And they say, and you can see how it is increasing. In 2024, 43% reported higher anxiety, right? Compared to 37% in 2023 and 32% in 2022. So every year, the level of anxiety is increasing. My father had a business in pharmaceuticals, and I'm talking about many, many years ago. And one of the drugs used for treatment of stress is called alprazolam. Some of you may have heard of it. And he told me one time that there was, sometimes in 90s or mid to late 90s, because he used to sell bulk drugs, which other factories that would make tablets and syrups will buy. He said we used to sell about maybe 4 or 5 kilos in a month. 4 was probably the max they would sell. And it was an expensive drug. And this was sometime in 2000, maybe 15 or 16, he told me, that now we are selling over 200 to 300 kilos a month. And there is so much demand that if I can get access to a ton, I would go to sell it like this. And this was per month. This is not like an annual number. This is per month. So I'm still talking of 2016, 17, and now you can see from this that how this is increasing. And the most troubling point, when I was kind of researching a little bit for this workshop, and I think it was number 3, which was the most troubling, that it is the youngsters between the age of 18 and 24. 66% of them, they report stress. And when my younger son, one time he came and told me that, Dad, there are friends of mine who are not able to sleep in the night. And they're taking, sleep medicines, like melatonin or something else. I could not believe it. That children who are aged 18, 19, 20, they're having so much stress that they have to take these drugs. But again, this is true. The level of anxiety among the youngsters is increasing quite a bit because of a lot of these reasons, right? A lot of these reasons. And so again, they're saying in about this year, 70% of Americans are saying, and this was a recent survey done, that they've experienced some anxiety or depression, and 60% having sleepless nights. Right? When you don't get a good night's sleep, you have a very difficult next day. Right? So 60% are saying sleepless nights, and 40% are feeling physically ill. Right? And this one last, where it says that almost 25% are saying that by the time they turn 30, they already feel burnt out. When our grandparents were even at the age of 75, they didn't felt burnt out. There was so much energy they had. I remember my grandfather. And I nowadays look at youngsters, after doing a little bit, they get very exhausted. Right? Because it's not the physical body that is troubling them, it is the mind which is causing all this stress. So the truth is that this problem is actually taking almost epidemic proportions. And it's not just in the US, it's everywhere. And I was just sharing with her that in India, 1 in 5 young people who are dying is out of suicide. 1 in 5, right? So those who actually die, some of course die with road accidents, some because of some other disease. But this is increasing throughout the world, and they say that almost 970 million people across the world, they have mental disorders, which causes almost $2.5 trillion. And this is like old figures, but it will become almost $6 trillion by 2030 to take care of such people. So that's why I was saying psychiatry is a very profitable business.
I think when you listed down the reasons we forgot, one big reason is the phone.
Is a phone. What are the...
These numbers.
Yeah. So see how much money is going to be spent. But today we are going to talk of ways that without spending a penny, right, people actually are going. Nowadays, if you try to get an appointment with some sort of a behavioral therapist, it's very difficult to get appointments because they're all very busy. So, but this is going increasing and making a lot of difficulty for many people, and especially in the low or middle income countries where they actually have even more difficulties, right? Whether it's a financial security, health, so many other issues, they are facing even more challenges. So, and this is, I think all of you understand this, and the reason you may have all heard about this, but this is where it's important to know that this stress that we experience, if we don't recognize it, and if we don't manage it properly, it causes a lot of problems. See, life is a very beautiful thing. Life is a very beautiful thing. And it has been given to us to actually achieve some goal. But unfortunately, we get so entangled in this web that has been created that all our life we are just trying to deal with these situations and get a lot of health issues. And I won't go through all of this, but you can see pretty much every kind of health problem, every kind of health problem can be traced back to stress or a mental health condition. So I call this workshop Mind and Stress Management. So the reason is because stress is just one aspect of mind, right? Mind goes through a lot of other problems. So stress is a manifestation of the mind facing these challenges. But mind actually has a lot of other problems, and to manage the stress, you actually have to understand the mind. And if you're able to manage the mind, then stress automatically gets under control. But all of these, are related to stress. Sometimes we may say that, if I'm having an infection, or I got this bacterial infection, right? But the truth is, you got the bacterial infection because you had a weakened immune system. And why is your immune system weak? Because of the stress. And stress is both emotional, mental, and physical. Because you're probably not living a very healthy lifestyle. And that again, we don't live a healthy lifestyle because the way our mind has been conditioned by today's world, right? Especially in America, that you don't even take time off to have lunch at work, right? So it's considered taboo if you take 1 hour off to eat lunch properly, right? So people call it a working lunch. They're all sitting in a conference room, having some really, really stressful discussions. In between that, they're biting on a sandwich, which is probably ordered from some shop, and who knows what's in there. So, we think that we are utilizing our time, but we are causing a great negative impact to our health. Same thing with cognitive decline. You will be amazed that the dementia which is the degeneration of the mind, it is increasing significantly in America. There was a time when only people 65 and above would be worried about dementia. Now they're saying starting at the age 45, dementia is increasing. So what is the reason for that? The reason again is because we're so stressed out. The mind, our brain, the neurons, they all get so stressed out that slowly, it starts giving away. So unhealthy lifestyle. So many issues. Same thing, stomach problem and even cancer. Even though, they may say this is because of a genetic issue, this issue, that issue, there may be all kind of issues that are told to us. But end of the day, if you really study these carefully, it all leads to stress. 80% of the health issues can be resolved if you live a healthy, stress-free life. Okay? So with this background, that we have stress, it has an impact on our health, it has impact on our families, it has effect on our relationships, it has effect on the society, so many different ways. So let's try to see, where does it come from? It comes from the mind. Now, I want to keep this interactive. We will certainly have some question answer time towards the, in between, but if you have any questions in between, feel free and we can take questions as we go. So what is mind? So before we try to understand what is mind, I think I need one volunteer for a quick demo. Who would like to volunteer? Someone? Okay. You come here. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you a few things. You just touch that. Okay? So you can just face here. So if you can just show everyone, where are your eyes? And your nose? Your hands? Your legs? Your head? Your brain?
Inside.
And your mind?
Inside.
Inside where?
Inside the brain.
Inside the brain. Okay. And can you touch yourself? Those are your hands. So, can you touch yourself? So, where are you? See? We can tell what our hands are, what our eyes are, what my mouth, tongue. But if I say touch yourself, then, what is that? Right? And is the mind brain or the head? It's actually none of them. Okay, thank you. So what is really mind? So this is something very important to understand. Because unless we understand what is mind, we would not be able to manage it. Right? So this is our physical body that we all see. Right? We have the hands, we have nose, eyes, ears, we have the head, it has the brain inside, so many organs. All of that is our physical body. Right? Our physical body. That typically we think is me. Right? That's what typically we think. So therefore, if you look at all kind of stress-related therapies or drugs, everything is trying to fix something physical by giving you something physical. Right? When you give a drug to someone, it's a physical thing, and they're trying to fix something physical in your body. Right? So we'll come to that once again. But within this physical body, there is something else, which is called the subtle body. What is the subtle body? The subtle body consists of mind, intelligence, and false ego. Three things. This is a subtle body. What does subtle mean? Subtle means it's not physical. It's not physical. It's not something that you can point and you can touch and show. It's not something, because it is not physical, you can't really see it. Right? So we all have our mind, which we think is the brain, but it's not the brain. Right? Because The mind is something that carries these impressions with you from one life to the next life. All of you probably believe in reincarnation, right? Anyone who does not believe in reincarnation? So I think everyone believes in reincarnation, and actually today even most people in America, even though it's not central to their religious beliefs, but many believe in reincarnation. So when reincarnation takes place, the subtle body goes with you from this body to the next body. Your brain doesn't go with you, right? So the brain is different from the mind. So these are two different things. And the subtle body consists of the mind. So mind is what we're going to talk about. But higher than that is the intelligence. What is intelligence? Intelligence is the ability to decide what is right and what is wrong. Mind typically is carried by emotions, by desires, wants something. Right? So, just like a child, he sees a plug, right? So when a child becomes 2 years old, you try to make your house child-proof, they call it. Right? Child-proof. So what does that mean? In all these electrical plugs, you people go and put those, plastic things, so the child does not put his hand inside. The child is this linguistic, he does not know. He's just carried out, he's just driven by his emotions, by his desire. He does not understand what is right and what is wrong. And in that sense, all of us have that within us. A lot of decisions that we take in our life are carried or are driven by our emotions. Okay? And not by that ability to see if that is right or wrong, it is good or bad for me. So, but this intelligence is also part of the subtle body, and then is the false ego. It is this false ego that ties the third thing, which is the soul. The soul is the most subtle. Okay? And as you all know, Krishna speaks about the soul in Bhagavad Gita. So the soul is the minutest. And the soul is covered by the subtle body, and then the subtle body is covered by the physical body. So the point here is, where does the stress lie? It does not lie in the physical body. There's no part of your physical body that actually, it may be impacted by the stress, but it is not the cause of the stress. Okay? It is, and we will see this as we go through some of the strategies of how to manage the stress. So this is a very important point to understand. No part of your physical body is the cause of stress. It is the mind that perceives something in the physical body as a problem that causes the stress. That is why one person with the same problem may be very stressed out, but another person with the same physical issue does not feel the stress because he's able to manage it. He's able to accept it and move ahead with it. Right? And I've seen that in my life. I've seen people who have very, little physical problem, and they feel as if it's end of my life. End of my life. And then we have one devotee in our temple. She's a white American lady, 72 years old, and she recently had a little stroke, Vrinda Devi. She had a little stroke. She drove to it wasn't that bad, but she was able to go to the hospital, and we were a bit worried. We called her and she said, I'm perfectly fine. I have no problem, okay? Stop worrying about me. And she came back home, and after 3-4 days, she was at the temple helping and things out. And I could see, and I've seen some other, which not even something as serious as a stroke, they are so disturbed that they feel this is just the end of everything. So the point is, the stress is not in the physical body, right? The stress is in the subtle body, in the mind. And the stress is also not in the soul. Stress is not in the soul. Because the soul, by nature, is blissful. Okay? So now you understand, the thing that is tying the physical body to the soul is this subtle body. That is tying the two things together. Something which is very blissful, because of this subtle body, is thinking I am this physical body. And as a result, it perceives situations as fearful. Okay, we said fear of future, right? So that's the perception. Where is that perception? In the mind, right? Does your hand feel fearful? Can you ask your hand, are you fearful? Say, I don't have nothing to fear about. You ask your head or stomach, are you fearful? They are not fearful. Who is fearful? The soul is fearful? The soul is not fearful. It's your mind which harbors this fear. So one time actually we were in Disney and we were going to take a ride, and that ride was like a roller coaster. Typically I don't like roller coasters. But it wasn't not a terrible roller coaster, but it was still a roller coaster. You went really up high and there was a dragon, and of course not artificial. It would come like this, as if he's coming and bouncing on you. And I was standing outside. Should I go in? Should I not go in? I was a bit concerned and a bit fearful, frankly. I was a bit fearful. Even though I was seeing many people going in and they all were coming out, right? But I was a bit fearful, very hesitant. And everyone else, all the friends and family were like, come on, it'll be okay. And then there was one person who came and he was standing and he was seeing that how hesitant I was, and he come and he says, come on, everyone survives. So when I heard that, I felt that it was not that my physical body will be harmed, right? But the fear was that there will be some harm if I go and take this ride. Of course, I don't really enjoy a lot of these rides, but it was more the fear that was preventing me from doing this. So it is the mind that has all the fear. But believe me, everyone survives. And you can see in your own life, if you go back and see life situations where you felt it is something very, very difficult, I will not be able to get through this. Right? All of us have faced these situations. I have faced many times. And when that situation happened, then you felt, oh my gosh, how am I going to get through this? How it is so difficult. People have had situations where either it was a problem with the job, right? Problem with some family relationship, right? Sometimes problem with the kids, right? So all kind of these things, many of these things we have gone through. And if you go back, the fact that you are all here and still alive, that means we have been able to go through those situations. We have survived those situations. But we were unnecessarily fearful. So this is an important point to understand. And because everything is going to be driven from this point. So is this clear? Okay. Because if we don't understand what mind is, then what Krishna is trying to tell Arjuna? Because Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is not giving physical solutions. He is giving a solution which is beyond the physical thing. And this is a very interesting, I think many of you must have heard of, or that our body is like this chariot. Okay? It's like this chariot. And this chariot is being driven by 5 horses. And which are those 5 horses? Our 5 senses. The sense of hear, touch, taste. So these 5 senses that we have, these are the 5 horses. And what is controlling these 5 horses is these reins or the ropes. Right? That's how you control the horse. But the reins are in the hand of the charioteer, the person who is driving the chariot. So that charioteer is the intelligence. Okay? These ropes or the reins is the mind. And the person who's sitting in the chariot is the real you, is the soul. Okay? Now, if these horses have to be controlled, where does the solution lie? In the intelligence, right? So the solution lies in this person. Because if he is not strong, if the horses are very strong, the ropes are very strong, but he is not very strong, right? He's weak, right? So that's why when nowadays, of course, the battles are fought a very different way. You just sit in a control room and fire missiles. Right? Before, they were fought on chariots. So along with the fighter, it was very important that you selected a charioteer who could drive your chariot properly. Because you were supposed to be an expert, so that he can go through the army, and if the person who's sitting, the soldier or typically the king, gets hurt, he should be able to take him out of that battlefield. So the charioteer was equally important. The horses were selected properly, everything, but the charioteer had a very important role to play. So therefore, what Krishna is teaching to Arjun throughout Bhagavad Gita is to strengthen the intellect. Okay? So this is another important point to understand, to strengthen our intellect. Because once our intelligence is strengthened, then you can control your mind very, very easily. So with that, now there are two types of solutions. So one is, temporary solution of how to manage your stress, and temporary solutions, they provide some relief. So a lot of things that now if you feel stress, you go to a therapist, right? Typically what they will do, they will, teach you some behavioral therapy is there. They will potentially give you some medicines. There are other things that you can do, whether it's listening to music, whether it is exercising, right? All of these things are there. And they all have benefit. Okay, they all have benefit. But at the same time, they may not give you the permanent solution. Just like if you see a smoke coming out of the building, or from your house, you went out and you came and you saw some smoke coming out of the door. And you quickly got a fan and you started fanning it, removing the smoke. And you were just focusing on removing the smoke. But where is the smoke coming from? What does that mean? If the smoke is coming, there is fire inside the house. But if you don't really focus on extinguishing the fire, what is going to happen? At some point the house is going to explode, right? So a lot of times, why is it that even after, like 20, 30 years ago, we didn't have many of the medicines that are available today. We didn't have those medicines. Right? So nowadays you have this serotonin booster, dopamine, all kind of things are available. All kind of things. But the stress levels are increasing. Anxiety levels are increasing. So, what does that tell you? That we're only doing the surface thing. We're just trying to remove the smoke. But the underlying problem is not being resolved. So therefore, all of these issues are increasing. Why? Because we're still focusing on the physical, whereas the mind is not physical. So what Krishna is telling Arjun in Bhagavad Gita is the permanent solution. Something that will solve the root problem and also give permanent relief. Okay? So this is why we are choosing Bhagavad Gita as a therapy instead of many other therapies that are out there. So a very famous quote from Einstein. Right? So Einstein said that we cannot solve problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Okay? So we cannot solve problems with the same thinking. So it has certain type of thinking that has created our problems. Okay, all of these, okay, are because of a certain kind of thinking that we have, right? High expectations from others, of us. And we are forced to mold our life to believe or to fulfill the expectations of others, right? We may or may not want to do it. I have a friend whose son wanted to go through a certain, wanted to be something, a certain profession, but the father wanted him to be something else. No, don't do this. हम लोगों का, we have what हम दुनिया को क्या दिखाएंगे? How would we show our face to the world? Right? No, this profession is not good. You do this, you do this, you do this. It's a high expectation of that child. And what happened, I think many of us as parents, or when we were children, we had to go through the same thing. And this particular boy, just to meet the expectations of his parents, went through that particular course. And first of all, it took much longer time. He became very depressed, started using drugs, and went through many, many difficult challenges. Anyways, he finally graduated with a degree that his parents wanted, got a job, but he was extremely unhappy. He was making money, but did not have the desire to go to work every day because he just didn't like that profession. And ultimately it came to a point that finally he got the guts and said, sorry, I just can't do it. After wasting 6 years of his life, he said, I just can't do it. So by that time, his parents also realized that our expectations were unreasonable, and he went back to doing what he had wanted to do. And he's very happy now because he's doing what he wanted to do. So it's in the sense what Einstein is saying, the thing that created the way of thinking that created the problem in the first place, if we keep using the same techniques to solve that problem, it will only make the problem even worse. It will not make it better. And you can see that with these drugs, I'll go back to that, none of the drugs that are used for relieving the stress are free from side effects. They make you very dependent on them. You actually have so many other health issues related to it. So the problems become more and more severe. So, therefore, since mind is non-physical, the solution needs to be non-physical as well. So, everyone getting this point? And the truth is, it is the physical things that cost money. The non-physical things do not cost anything, but we have to have the faith to accept them. We have to have the faith to accept them. And this is where, when Arjun, when he transitioned from trying to argue with Krishna that I should not fight the battle, finally, when he came, he ran out of all his arguments. When he said, Karpanya dosh upahat swabhava prichami tvam dharma sambuddha cheta syat bruhit tat nishchitame shadi mam tvam prapannam. He said, tvam prapannam, that now I surrender unto you. Finally, I am giving up my arguments and I surrender unto you. Syat bruhit Shreya Syat Rohit Tatme, whatever is best for me, you please decide and tell me. So what Krishna told him that time was everything non-physical. He didn't tell Arjun, okay, go and take this medicine, or let's go to see this therapist. No, he told him things which were totally non-physical. Anyone has any questions or anything at this point which you have not understood?
Question. I sort of not understand. Like you gave an example of the boy who, after 6 years, finally, I wouldn't say gave up, surrendered, or basically decided that he wants to go back and do what he wanted to. Not everyone has that opportunity, or not everything can be reversed at that point of time. Occupation may be one thing that you can change your life, in like lines in career or education. At any point of time, you can go back to college. Not everything in your life can be undone.
Yes.
And then tying it back to like a couple of slides back when you mentioned, jokingly you said that since everyone is in the room, everyone is alive, you have made it like these things are outside of that. There is so just tying it back to that thing. One thing is that you just made through a thing, and the other thing is that you happily went through it. At the end of it, everyone's alive, or basically will go through the life cycle, but it's a purpose of it is that when a problem was there, did we just went through life, or was it like we dealt it in a way that we didn't lose our sanity, and we didn't lose those 6 years or 2 years or 1 year or 1 month for that matter, just being so worried about it. And since everything cannot be undone, I think that's what we are doing. I guess everyone's looking for how to have the
Yes.
solutions henceforth. In a way.
Sure. A very good point, and that's what we will come to. Not everything in life can be undone, right? A lot of things cannot be undone. So how do we deal with, because many times we are put in situations because of the past karma. Right? Now, how do we deal in those situations? And that's exactly what Krishna is going to explain, that how do we accept that situation and deal with what we are put in. So we'll come to that. It's a good point. So, and this is where the balance of mind comes into play. So if this is your mind, a mind is being subjected to many kind of forces all the time, positive and negative. So you have negative energy that is bombarding your mind, right? And similarly you have positive energy also bombarding your mind. Or, so at any point, right, if you remember from time of physics, if I don't know if any one of you kids have studied Newton's laws of motion, right? So if there is a block and one force acting this way, one acting this way, which way the block move? In the direction where the force is higher. So if at any given point it's a negativity that is more strong, your mind is going to go towards the negative side. It's going to create that imbalance. But if the positive side is stronger, it will become more balanced. So the whole idea is that how do we make this much stronger and this much weaker? The more weaker this becomes and stronger the positive side becomes, your mind will get automatically balanced. And when I say energy, there are many things in there. Our actions, constitute our energy. What things that you do. Okay. What thoughts do you have? There are certain thoughts that we have no control, and certain thoughts we can condition our mind to think a certain way. So what thoughts? What habits do you have? Right? And what tendencies do we have? And many of these are from previous impressions, from previous lives. You have certain tendencies. See, again, very important. So I'll tell you, one of the problems in managing our mind or stress level is that we don't want to change. And one of the things he said was procrastination, right? We know something is not right? We know something, or we just went to this seminar and we learned this thing, but the mind is so strong, it takes a lot of effort at times to overcome it, to do things. If you can fix this energy, instead of having negative actions, have positive actions. Instead of having negative thoughts, have positive thoughts. Negative habits versus positive habits. And same thing with the tendencies, your energy, positive energy will automatically increase. Right? So again, bear this in mind, that this is what Krishna is telling Arjuna throughout Bhagavad Gita. How to make his actions positive. What actions are positive actions and what actions are negative actions? What are positive thoughts? What are negative thoughts? And we'll go through some of that. What are positive habits? What are positive tendencies? So how do we make more things in our life positive? But the fact here is who decides what is positive and negative? Who decides what is positive and negative? Intellect, good. And where does that intellect decide that from? How does the intellect decide? Experience. And what else? Knowledge. And where does that knowledge is gained from? See, this is where an important one. First of all, if we make these decisions with our mind, it's not going to be the right decision. So first thing is, yes, the intelligence should make those decisions. And what is that intelligence is basing it on? From knowledge that is acquired from scriptures. Okay? And, so that's where all of you are from India, and many times we don't read our scriptures thinking that they are very old-fashioned, that they are very ritualistic. A lot of different misconceptions that we have about the scriptures. And I can tell you those are all misconceptions. But if they are studied properly, if they are understood properly, they actually give you the right wisdom. And Bhagavad Gita is a prime example of that. Nowhere throughout 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita, even a single ritual is mentioned. Not even throughout 700 Bhagavad Gita, there's one dogmatic belief that has been mentioned. Nothing is like there in the whole Bhagavad Gita. Right? So if our intelligence is guided by true knowledge, see, today is a world of AI, right? Artificial intelligence. What is it called? Artificial. If I had artificial flowers here, would they have any fragrance? No. If I had artificial pancakes, would you like to eat them? Because they will not nourish you, right? So anything artificial is not going to give you real happiness. And I can tell you, this is the world, unfortunately, we may or may not be able to stop it, but while it will certainly have some benefits, okay? I'm not denying it, because I'm also involved to some extent with it. It will certainly have some benefits. But the nature of this, when we are guided by our mind, which is full of greed, lust, pride, arrogance, when that is guiding any initiative, end of the day, it is only going to create more problems. Okay? So this artificial intelligence, of course, people are talking about mass layoffs, they're talking about all kind of things, and you're already seeing so much fake stuff that is now happening. And the level of our intelligence is going to go further down, right? How many of you can do a calculation without using a calculator? Anyone? Can you do it? Can we go through an exercise?
Depends on the size of the numbers.
Like 28 times 5
28 times 5, 140. 140.
times 3.
740. No, 560.
So like, no, you can't. So my father would, at that when we were young, he would sit with us and do this, and we could do it like this. Today I can't do it either, right? Because we're so dependent on these calculators that the ability of mind. I was always surprised when those street hawkers came, in India, and you are buying vegetables. Right? So you're buying some beans, and you're asking what is the price. He will say 20 to 25 rupees for 100 gram. Right? And you say, give me 200 or some strange number, 150 grams. And immediately he will write on a piece of paper what is the number. And so all kind of different measurements he will tell you. And you also ask for all kind of different quantities that you want. And he will immediately start writing on... he would do the exact calculations. And I've seen him many times. You go to HEB or any place, buying groceries, cash register. Now, of course, we all pay by credit cards, but a few times I had cash, and it came $6.93, and I told her, return me 7 cents. No, let me check. The person was not confident that it will be $3.07 if I gave a $10 bill. Right? So why this is weakening our intelligence? AI is going to weaken it even further. And unfortunately nowadays, and one of my friends who's a professor in India, and we are actually working with Delhi Technology of University to start an online course on sustainable happiness. What I'm teaching you today, we are going to translate this into a 6-month course, which will be delivered through DTU as well as George Washington University. And he told me that nowadays, first the parents were concerned that the children don't listen to us, they only listen to the teachers. And many times it would happen. No, मेरे teacher ने ये कहा है. You said, no, नहीं, मेरी teacher ने ये बोला है, वो ठीक है. Now they say that teachers are getting worried because kids don't want to listen to them. No, ChatGPT is saying this, you know. So, and ChatGPT, as you know, just declared that Chief Minister of Karnataka was, or some translation was mistake. So anyways, we base ourselves on artificial things. So the point here is that intelligence should be derived from books like Bhagavad Gita. Then it would be the right thing. So